Obama is doing some more positive stuff in his final days in office. Listen to what he did for atheists. So Patheos explains here, for the first time, atheists and other non-religious persons are explicitly named as a class protected by the law. President Obama has signed into law the Frank Wolf International Religious Freedom Act. The new law protects atheists, humanists, and other freethinkers around the world from religious persecution. The new law explicitly protects atheists, humanists, and non-theists and upgrades the 1998 International Religious Freedom Act. In particular, the new law states the following. The freedom of thought, conscience, and religion is understood to protect theistic and non-theistic beliefs, as well as the right not to profess or practice any religion. The act also condemns specific targeting of non-theists, humanists, and atheists because of their beliefs, and attempts to forcibly compel, quote, non-believers or non-theists to recant their beliefs or to convert. So, overall, a law like this, it is symbolic because we don't have, the United States is the United States. We have jurisdiction over the United States. We don't have jurisdiction over the world, nor should we. But it's still a good thing, and it's still a step in the right direction because it's finally openly acknowledging non-believers and treating them as somewhat human, at least in discourse. Obama was apparently the first president to bring up non-religious people. I'm not sure if it was at a State of the Union address or a different speech he gave, but he was the first one to be like, yes, let's fight for the rights of, and protect the rights of minorities and various religious communities and non-believers. So that's a first. So again, that's a giant step in the right direction. But I feel like what's often missed in this conversation is the exact reason why something like this is needed. Because some people might scoff and go, yeah, who cares? Like, what do you mean? We're atheists. Like, atheists aren't, going through anything. Well, that's not true. So, for example, when you look at the polls, atheists are more disliked than Muslims, gays, and blacks. Now, I don't know if you know this. Those groups, particularly in, the West, they haven't had it that great. Muslims are less than 1% of the population in the U.S. There's been a spike in anti-Muslim hate crimes recently. Everybody knows the shitty deal blacks have gotten, and gays until recently, they didn't have the right to marry, and they still, by the way, they're not a protected class in the sense that, you can still get fired simply for being gay, or kicked out of a place of business simply for being gay in over 20 states. So they kind of have it rough, but atheists, according to polling, are more disliked than them. About half of the American people say, I wouldn't want my kid to marry an atheist. Imagine that in any other context. Imagine somebody said, if there was a poll, about half of the American people don't want their kid to marry a Jew. They don't want their kid to marry a black. All of us cringe because we go, that's kind of the textbook definition of bigotry. But when it comes to atheists, people don't frame it in that way, and they don't think of it that way, but they should. Also, 50% of Americans say they wouldn't vote for an atheist. Now, that one, I think, is a little more of a complicated picture because they say they wouldn't until they would. It was kind of like with Obama, like, oh, America will never have a black president. And then people were like, well, we like that guy. So I feel like the same thing could happen with atheists, but it is striking that, it's just an open, people are like, yeah, no, of course. Well, I wouldn't vote for an atheist. Because, and here's the reasoning behind that. Many people equate atheism with immorality. So when somebody tells you, hey, I'm an atheist, they hear, I don't believe in right and wrong, I don't believe in treating people good, fuck the message of Jesus, which is hilarious because if you look at polling on atheists versus Christians, so the atheist community versus the Christian community, the beliefs of the atheist community are much more in line with the philosophy, the hippie aspect philosophy of Jesus. So atheists act a lot more like Jesus than Christians do. And yet we're the ones that get judged as, atheist, you're immoral. That's what you are. That's for you to say I'm an atheist, you're admitting I'm immoral. There's also 7 states in the U.S. that bar atheists from running for office. Now, understand that one's, again, more complicated because at a federal level, that's illegal. You can't have a religious test for office. So technically, even though on the state law books, it says they're banned from running in certain places, that wouldn't hold up in court. So you can run as an atheist anywhere in the U.S. But it does show you something that's just that language is on the books and nobody's like, hey, we got to change that now. That's crazy. Because if there was language still on the books of like, Jews can't run for office here. Damn Jews, damn Muslims, they can't run for office here. People be like, oh, that is gross. But again, with atheists, nobody thinks about it. It's on the books and nobody talks about it, nobody thinks about it, but that's a clear sign of anti-atheist bigotry. That's exactly what that is. Polls also show that atheists are as distrusted as rapists. And also, get this is the amazing thing, and this is why this piece of legislation is important. 19 countries punish apostasy. 14 countries kill you for being an atheist. So that is grotesque. And to have the U.S. government say, wink and a nod, you know, we recognize atheists' rights and we're on your side. Again, there's no teeth to this bill because it's international and we obviously don't have jurisdiction over everybody, but it's a sign of progress and moving in the right direction. What actually needs to happen, though, in terms of legislation? Well, obviously you get rid of those laws on the 7 state books immediately, obviously. But also, I would argue you need to add atheists to the actual list of protected classes. So in other words, you could still technically be fired if you're an atheist, and if you're in the Bible Belt, some employer might find it out and say, we don't like your kind, and fire you. So you have to add them to the list of protected classes where you can't simply be fired or mistreated for being X, for being an atheist. So right now, it's like you can't just be fired solely on the basis, you're a broad, you're a woman, fired. Oh, you're a Jew, fired. You know, you're a black, you're a minority, I don't like your kind, fired. You can't do that. That's against the law. There are protections for those classes. Specifically, historically, they face more discrimination, so you can't just say solely based on that, I'm going to fire you. I think atheists should be added to the list of protected classes. So it's a step in the right direction. I like to see them go a little bit further, but it's good to see the tides turning and people's minds beginning to change on this issue.